Doctors won't tell you this. Fix iron deficiency fast with these natural habits. You are exhausted. Not the kind of tired that goes away after a good night's sleep. I'm talking about the kind of exhaustion that sits deep in your bones, where you wake up in the morning already feeling like you've run a marathon. You're dragging yourself through the day, your brain feels foggy, you can't concentrate, and no amount of coffee seems to fix it. Maybe you've even gone to the doctor, gotten told everything looks fine, and walked away with zero answers. If that sounds like you, I need you to stop whatever you're doing right now, because what I'm about to share might be the most important thing you've watched all year. Here's what nobody tells you. Over 2 billion people worldwide are living with iron deficiency right now. That's more than 1 in 4 people on this planet walking around with a problem that is quietly draining their energy, wrecking their focus, damaging their hair, and making their skin look dull. All while their doctors either miss it completely or hand them a prescription for iron supplements that half the time make them feel even worse. And the craziest part? Most of these people could start reversing their deficiency within weeks using habits so simple, so natural, and so affordable that it almost seems too good to be true. But it's not. The science is there, the results are real. And by the time this video is done, you are going to understand your body in a way that most people never do. Let's start with something that might actually surprise you. Iron deficiency and iron deficiency anemia are not the same thing. Most people think you only have a problem if a blood test comes back flagging anemia, low red blood cell count, low hemoglobin, the full picture. But the truth is that your iron stores can be critically depleted for months, sometimes even years, before your hemoglobin drops low enough to technically qualify as anemia. During that entire time, you're suffering, you're struggling, and every test keeps coming back saying you're normal. This stage is called iron depletion or non-anemic iron deficiency, and it is wildly underdiagnosed. So, if you've been told you're fine but you still feel terrible, this is why. Now let's talk about what iron actually does in your body, because most people have a very vague idea that it's something to do with blood, and leave it at that. Iron is at the core of hemoglobin, the protein inside your red blood cells that grabs oxygen from your lungs and carries it to every single cell in your body. Without enough iron, your cells are starved of oxygen. And when your cells don't get enough oxygen, everything slows down. Your energy crashes, your brain gets foggy, your muscles ache, your immune system weakens, your hair follicles stop getting the nutrients they need, and the hair starts falling out. Your skin loses its glow, your nails go brittle and start developing these strange vertical ridges, or even a spoon-like curve that doctors call koilonychia. Your heart starts working harder to compensate, which is why some people with iron deficiency get heart palpitations, a racing or fluttering sensation in their chest that feels genuinely terrifying when you don't know what's causing it. And then there's one symptom that people almost never connect to iron deficiency, and it blows people's minds every single time I bring it up. Restless legs syndrome. That unbearable, crawling, itching, have-to-move-your-legs sensation that keeps you awake at night. Studies have consistently linked it to low iron levels in the brain. Not just in the blood, in the brain. Iron is involved in the production of dopamine, the neurotransmitter that controls smooth, coordinated movement. When iron is low, dopamine signaling goes haywire, and your legs essentially go into a kind of neurological chaos at night. Fixing your iron often dramatically improves restless legs within weeks. That one fact alone has changed the lives of people who had been suffering for years with no explanation. So how do you know if this is actually your problem? The symptoms are the starting point, but you need to go further than that. When you talk to your doctor about testing, don't just ask for a full blood count. That test only catches full-blown anemia. What you specifically want is a ferritin test. Ferritin is the protein that stores iron in your body, and it's the earliest and most sensitive marker of iron depletion. Here is the important part, and please pay attention because this alone could save you years of suffering. The official normal range for ferritin in most labs goes all the way down to 12 nanograms per milliliter. 12. But functional medicine practitioners and many sports medicine doctors argue that below 30 nanograms per milliliter, most people start experiencing symptoms. Below 50, hair loss becomes common, and to feel genuinely optimal and energetic, many researchers now suggest that ferritin should be between 70 and 100 nanograms per milliliter, especially for women. So you could have a ferritin of 15. Your doctor looks at it and says it's within the normal range, and you walk away still suffering with no support. Now you know what to say back. Let's also talk about who is most at risk, because this isn't equally distributed. Women of reproductive age are by far the most vulnerable group, and the reason is menstruation. Every menstrual cycle, women lose blood, and with that blood goes iron. For women with heavy periods, a condition called menorrhagia, the iron loss every month can be staggering, far more than diet alone can consistently replenish. Pregnancy dramatically increases iron demand because the body is now building a whole new human being with a brand new circulatory system. Vegans and vegetarians face a different kind of challenge, which I'm going to explain in a moment. Athletes, particularly distance runners, face something called foot strike hemolysis, where the repeated pounding of their feet on the ground literally breaks apart red blood cells. People who have had certain gut surgeries, or who live with conditions like celiac disease, Crohn's disease, or H. pylori infection, often struggle to absorb iron properly no matter how much they eat. And surprisingly, frequent blood donors are at genuine risk of depleting their stores over time if they're not mindful. Now here is where this gets really interesting, and where most people get it completely wrong. They think the solution is just eating more iron. But that's only half the story, and arguably the less important half. Because the real question is not just how much iron you're eating, it's how much iron your body is actually absorbing. And the difference between those two numbers can be enormous, depending on what you know about how iron works. There are two types of iron in food. Heme iron, which comes from animal sources like red meat, chicken, fish, and shellfish, and non-heme iron, which comes from plant sources like lentils, spinach, beans, and fortified cereals. Heme iron is absorbed at a rate of roughly 15 to 35%. Non-heme iron is absorbed at somewhere between 2 and 20%. That's a massive difference. And what makes it worse is that non-heme iron absorption is dramatically affected by other things you're eating at the same meal. This is why vegetarians and vegans need to be especially strategic, not because plant foods don't contain iron, but because the iron in plant foods is fundamentally harder for the human gut to extract. So let's get into the natural habits that actually move the needle. The first one is the most powerful, and it costs nothing. You need to understand vitamin C as an iron absorption multiplier. When you eat vitamin C alongside a source of non-heme iron, the vitamin C converts the iron from ferric to ferrous form, which is the form your gut can actually absorb. Studies show that including vitamin C at a meal with iron-rich plant foods can increase absorption by up to 300%. That is not a typo. 300%. So instead of eating your lentils with nothing, squeeze fresh lemon juice over them. Have a glass of orange juice with your fortified breakfast cereal. Eat your spinach salad with red bell pepper and tomato. These are not complicated changes. They are the difference between your body absorbing 2% of the iron in your food versus potentially absorbing 8 to 10%. That adds up to a completely different reality over weeks and months. The second habit is one that most people do completely wrong out of habit. Avoid drinking tea or coffee with your iron-rich meals. This one is hard for a lot of people to hear, especially in the UK where tea is basically a cultural institution. But here's the reality. Tea, coffee, and even red wine contain compounds called tannins and polyphenols that bind to iron in your gut and block absorption. Studies show that a single cup of tea consumed with a meal can reduce iron absorption by up to 60%. Coffee is slightly less potent but still significant. The simple fix is to time your tea and coffee. Have them an hour before your meal or 2 hours after. That one shift alone, without changing anything else you eat, can meaningfully improve your iron status over time. The third habit is about cooking technique, and this is one that people find genuinely surprising. If you cook in a cast iron skillet or pot, especially with acidic foods like tomatoes, citrus-based sauces, or anything with vinegar, measurable amounts of iron leach from the pan into your food. Multiple studies have actually confirmed this. Scrambled eggs made in a cast iron pan can have significantly more iron than eggs made in a non-stick pan. Tomato sauce simmered in cast iron picks up iron as it cooks. This is not a huge amount, but for someone who is borderline deficient, every milligram counts. And this is a completely free, effortless way to increase your iron intake without changing what you eat. The fourth habit is about timing your calcium. Calcium is one of the most powerful inhibitors of iron absorption. And the tricky thing is that dairy products, which are a major source of calcium in the Western diet, are often eaten at the same meals as iron-containing foods. Milk with cereal, cheese on a meat dish, yogurt at breakfast. If you're fighting iron deficiency, separating your calcium-rich foods from your iron-rich foods by at least 2 hours makes a significant difference. The same applies to calcium supplements. Take them in the evening, away from meals where you're focused on getting iron in. The fifth habit is about gut health, and this is the one that ties everything together in a way that most health advice completely ignores. Your iron absorption happens primarily in the upper part of your small intestine, and the cells that absorb it are sensitive, complex, and dependent on a healthy gut environment. Low stomach acid, which is extremely common and becomes more common with age and with the use of acid-suppressing medications like omeprazole and lansoprazole, dramatically reduces iron absorption. Your stomach acid is what you need to convert dietary iron into a form that your gut cells can transport across the intestinal wall. If your stomach acid is low, your iron absorption suffers regardless of how much iron you consume. Fermented foods, kimchi, sauerkraut, kefir, natural yogurt, help support a healthier gut microbiome and may improve the gut environment for nutrient absorption generally. Eating bitter foods before meals, like rocket or apple cider vinegar diluted in water, can stimulate stomach acid production naturally. The sixth habit is making liver a regular part of your diet. And yes, I understand that in most of the USA and UK, liver has a bit of an image problem. People think of it as something their grandparents ate, something with an overwhelming taste, something from another era. But from a nutritional standpoint, liver, particularly beef liver, is one of the most extraordinary foods that exists. A single 3-ounce serving of beef liver contains around 5 milligrams of highly bioavailable heme iron, along with massive amounts of vitamin B12, folate, vitamin A, and copper. Copper, by the way, is essential for the enzyme that loads iron into your red blood cells, so deficiency in copper can impair iron metabolism even when iron intake is adequate. If you truly cannot stand the taste of liver, chicken liver has a milder flavor, and cooking techniques like soaking in milk before cooking, using strong aromatics like onion and garlic, or incorporating it into meatballs or bolognese sauce can make it almost unrecognizable. Once a week is all you really need to make a meaningful contribution. The seventh habit is about the order and composition of your meals in a very practical sense. Iron absorption is highest in a state of relative iron deficiency. Your gut literally upregulates its absorption machinery when stores are low. But it's also significantly affected by what's in your meal as a whole. A meal built around red meat or organ meats alongside vegetables high in vitamin C and low in phytic acid, things like broccoli, kale, and bell peppers, rather than raw beans and unsoaked grains, is going to deliver iron to your bloodstream far more efficiently than a poorly composed plant-based meal. If you do eat beans, lentils, or whole grains as your iron source, soaking them overnight before cooking, and where possible, fermenting or sprouting them, substantially reduces their phytic acid content and increases the bioavailability of their iron. The eighth habit is about addressing your stress levels, and this one connects iron deficiency to a broader picture of health that people rarely discuss. Chronic stress elevates a hormone called cortisol, which suppresses the production of red blood cells in the bone marrow. Chronic inflammation, which is driven in part by chronic stress, poor sleep, and processed food, elevates a protein called hepcidin, which is your body's master regulator of iron metabolism. When hepcidin is high, your gut absorbs less iron, and your body locks the iron it does have inside cells rather than releasing it for use. This is why people with chronic inflammatory conditions can have normal or even elevated iron levels on their tests, but still be functionally iron deficient at the cellular level, a condition called anemia of chronic disease. Reducing inflammation through better sleep, stress management, anti-inflammatory eating, and cutting back on ultra-processed foods isn't just generally good advice, it directly supports your body's ability to use the iron it has. There is one more thing I need to say before you go, and I want to be completely straight with you about this. If your symptoms are severe, if you are struggling to get through daily life, if your ferritin is very low, if you are pregnant or postpartum, natural dietary changes alone may not be fast enough. In those cases, iron supplementation is genuinely warranted, and your doctor should be guiding you. But not all iron supplements are created equal. The most commonly prescribed form, ferrous sulfate, is effective but causes constipation, nausea, and gut cramping in a huge proportion of people who take it, which is why so many people stop taking it. Better tolerated forms include ferrous bisglycinate, also called iron bisglycinate or gentle iron, which is bound to an amino acid and absorbed more easily without the harsh gut side effects. Liquid iron supplements taken on an empty stomach with vitamin C can also be highly effective. If you are going to supplement, take your iron on alternate days rather than every single day. Emerging research strongly suggests that this leads to better absorption because it prevents the spike in hepcidin that daily dosing triggers. What I want you to leave with today is this. You are not imagining how you feel. You are not lazy. You are not just getting older. Iron deficiency is a real, physical, measurable problem that is affecting your energy, your cognition, your mood, and your quality of life. And the medical system routinely fails to catch it early enough. But you now know what to ask for on your next blood test. You know which foods to eat and how to eat them. You know what to separate and what to combine. You know that your gut health and your stress levels are part of this equation. You are walking away from this video with a complete, actionable, science-backed roadmap that most people spend years trying to piece together. Start today. Pick one habit. Put lemon on your spinach. Skip the tea with dinner. Pull out the cast iron pan. These are not dramatic changes, but they compound. And in 6 to 12 weeks, when you notice that the fog is lifting, when you notice that you're waking up and actually feeling like a person again, I want you to remember this moment. Because this is where it started. Right here, right now. With you deciding to actually understand what your body needs. If this helped you, share it with someone you know who's always tired and can never figure out why. It might genuinely change their life.